So good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for turning up. Welcome to this completely live and completely unknown what's about to happen questions and answers webinar about manifesting, practically speaking, and the law of attraction. Yes, this is not a recording like so many webinars are these days. I'm really here right now speaking to you live. So literally anything can happen in the next hour. I have no idea. It's up to you. I am the guy that goes by the somewhat unusual name of Stingray. And you'll find out in a few minutes why I have that name. Now, I know there's a bunch of you today that don't know who I am, so I'll explain a little bit about that shortly. But my hope with this webinar is to answer whatever questions you have about practically manifesting whatever you want into your life. Today's Q&A is driven entirely by you. I have no idea what the questions are going to be asked about, or indeed, I don't know if anyone actually has any questions, but I will try and weave together a framework of understanding that should hopefully provide you with some valuable information. So this webinar is open to anyone at any level of manifesting ability. If you are some manifesting guru, you are welcome here. If you are some newcomer to the law of attraction and manifesting in general, and you just want to find out what this crazy stuff is all about, you are welcome. And if you don't even know why you're here, you're welcome. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the law of attraction is the most important natural law in our entire universe. And it affects you every single moment of every single day, forever. So it's probably worth missing a few minutes of your favorite TV show just to learn a little tiny bit about it, simply because that's what your life is all about. Now, I know you're busy, and we all seem to lead busy lives these days, and I thank you for entrusting me with your time, because I'm hoping that at the end of this webinar, you're going to feel like it was a good use of your time. And if you have, then I will have succeeded in my aim today, because I genuinely want you to get something valuable out of our time here together. So, first of all, since we have some people here who don't know who on earth I am, I ought to explain a little bit about me. The question you're probably asking is, why should I waste my time over the next hour or so listening to this guy? Well, let me explain a little bit about me. My journey with the law of attraction actually started in the 1970s. I first came across this term in a book that is now called the Master Key System. It had a different title then. And I became somewhat obsessed with that book. It talked about how you could basically do things with your thoughts and make your reality mirror your thoughts. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So I became quite enamored with that book, and I carried it almost everywhere for several years, in fact, reading little bits from it. By the 1990s, I had started developing computer-based manifesting systems. In those days, computers, if you remember them, were weird little machines with green screens, sometimes orange screens. You couldn't really do a lot with them, but someone had invented something called a spreadsheet, and those things could crunch numbers. So I used to sit there crunching numbers to do with natural cycles and figuring out what the best time of day to do various things was. So that's how I started in this systematic manifesting kind of stuff. And then in the mid-90s or so, I came across the teachings of Abraham. That's Abraham Hicks. Some of you may have heard of that group. And I started to think, this is quite interesting, because what this group of beings are saying regarding the law of attraction seems to be quite compatible with these manifesting systems that I am sort of systematically conjuring up. And so I became really obsessed with Abraham and got into a lot of their stuff. And by the 2000s, Abraham had popularized the term law of attraction around the world with a series of books that became worldwide bestsellers. And so more and more people started to get into this idea of your thoughts creating your reality using this mysterious thing called the law of attraction. Then in 2006, there was this movie called The Secret, which was actually based upon the Abraham teachings, but for various reasons, lots of other gurus kind of jumped on board, and there was a lot of hoo-ha about this newfangled thing called the law of attraction, which to me sounded like this old thing that I had known about for quite a few years. But in any case, whatever happened, and the term law of attraction became even more mainstream. In 2009, I came across this website called Inward Quest at inwardquest.com, and I started posting some answers there. And most of those answers were really about manifesting and the law of attraction. And I started posting some of my sort of manifesting insights to there and turning them into manifesting methods that people could try out. And I did that under the username of Stingray, which just so happened to be a detective series I was watching on TV at the time. If I had known 10 years later I'd still be using that name, I would have thought of something, I don't know, super dude that does manifesting stuff all day long. But that probably wouldn't have fitted into the word limit, I think. Anyway, for several years, I was writing answers on there and noticing that people were still having the same issues. So I was writing answers and it seemed to be helping people, but then again, it didn't seem to be helping people. So in 2017, I started some private coaching where those foolish enough to sign up could then talk to me one-to-one, and I would try and help them with whatever blocks they had with manifesting whatever they want. And then 2018, which just happens to be this year, I had this idea for expanding out that idea of the coaching into something more group-based, into this thing called the Manifesting Lab, which is basically a vibrational boot camp where we focus heavily on getting practical results with these abstract ideas. So many people treat the law of attraction as sort of an airy-fairy kind of, yeah, it might work, it might not work. But we, in the Manifesting Lab, don't do that. We will get results. And I say will because it's only just been launched. So if you want to go and see what I'm up to, the latest stuff, just check out the Manifesting Lab. So coming back to the original question, why listen to me? Well, from my point of view, I've had a natural and steady progression with these ideas over more than 40 years. From your point of view, I might just be some guy that's popped out of nowhere and started talking about the law of attraction. But hopefully in these last few minutes, you've understood that I might be able to talk a little bit about the law of attraction in a way that might be helpful to you. So it might be useful for you to hang on and get your questions answered if you have any. So before we get started, I should probably ask all you wonderful people a very simple question, which is, does anyone actually have a question? If you do, please go to the chat box and type in number 1, just so that I know that there's actually something to talk about today. Otherwise, this could be a very short webinar. Yes, there's a few ones popping up there. Anyone else got a question? Okay, and out of all those number 1s, could you type a number 2 if you would like to ask that question live, either through a microphone or the telephone? And we have somebody who is willing to speak live. So let me see. That's I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Amla, would you care to come on live? I'm going to unmute you now, and hopefully we can hear what you've got to say or what you've got to ask. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Oh, hi there.
Hi there.
Have I got your name right? Is it Amla?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, great. And it sounds like you're on the call from the US somewhere.
Yeah, from California.
California, lovely sunny place. I love the place. So, Amla, welcome to the webinar. Welcome to this
Thank you.
Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. This is really exciting.
It's my pleasure. Um, I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you, and I don't even know if you know who I am. So, hopefully, that little history there has given you some insight. What can I answer for you, law of attraction wise, if
Yeah,
anything?
thank you. So I've been following Inward Quest for a number of years, and including your answers, and they've been super helpful. So thank you so much. And I work a lot with Abraham and Bashar's teachings, and Eckhart Tolle as well. And I've had a number of very successful manifestations, over the years, and it was helpful to hear you give a little bit more history about the fact that you've been doing this for over 40 years. I've kind of been at it for about 5 or 6 years now. And I think one of the struggles that I'm having is sort of when I started, I had these really big things that I wanted to manifest, and there's a lot of contrast and a lot of energy behind that. And so I was really willing to kind of like get very focused, and I had a lot of clarity about what I wanted, and it was very easy to manifest those things. And then I think as they came into manifestation, my focus has been more scattered because there's a lot of smaller things that I would love to manifest. Um, but I feel that I'm often very overwhelmed because of that, and I also don't have that same kind of intensity of focus that I know would bring the clarity and the immediate manifestations. And so I feel this sort of general sense of, I don't want to call it that, but it feels like sort of inefficiency in how I'm going about things. Um, and just sort of a bit of overwhelmment. And I think one of the things I'm really attracted to about your methodology is that I am an incredibly systematic person. I also work with spreadsheets. I also like to keep track of data and things like that. And I find myself just too scattered in terms of having 100 different things I'm working on, 100 different things I want to do. And I've even looked at like your manifesting spreadsheets on Inward Quest, and sometimes I think, oh, that's gonna just overwhelm me more too. So I guess the biggest thing I would love to have some help with is how to kind of decrease the overwhelmment and just like find a systematic method of like, maybe I'm just gonna pick a couple of things to work on, or I'm gonna just try and find clarity on these things. And so I don't know if that's a clear enough question, but that's kind of where I'm at.
It's very clear. Thank you very much, Amla. Um, so let me pull out my pen as a manner of speaking. So I'm going to just switch the screen over to something I can draw on,
Hmm.
and then hopefully we'll shed some insight onto how to deal with this overwhelm issue, because this is something that I'm probably a lot like you. I suffer from this as well. There is almost too much in the world, and I want to stick my fingers into all of it. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of pies to eat, you could say. And so for me, there's a few things I want to say to you. The first one is that, do you believe that you have to get involved with all of your manifestations for them to happen?
No, not at all.
So obviously you have come across Abraham before, so you are
Yes,
familiar with the idea of the vortex,
yes, yes.
right? So you say that you have 100 different things that you'd like to manifest.
Hmm.
Are you aware that you do not actually need to give attention to any of those things for those to manifest?
Yes, yes.
Ah, you are. Excellent. Now, just for the sake of people who are watching here, um, let's imagine that's Amla. Now she's a lady, I'm guessing, so I shall amend my fantastic drawing. Um, as you live your life, now Amla, I mean, to you, this is probably very basic stuff, but I just want to make sure everyone's on board with this.
Hmm.
As you live your life, you're just going through your life, and what happens is you see something that you don't like. So let's say something happens and you don't
Hmm.
like it. That launches a desire for what you do like to go into that thing called the vortex.
Hmm.
Uh, let me just draw a better arrow than that. So it goes into the vortex. So I didn't like that. So the good thing that I do like went in the vortex. And then the next thing, you're living your life a bit more. Another thing you didn't like. And as a result, what you do want goes into the vortex. And you
Hmm.
go along, and another thing you don't like, and what you do want goes in the vortex. And eventually, this vortex maybe has hundreds, perhaps thousands, perhaps millions of desires that you have shot off, and it's all waiting in the vortex to be manifested. The
Hmm.
vortex is like a potential energy of things that can manifest. Now, as we go on through our life, we're launching all these things automatically, but they're not manifesting in our life. And the reason generally for that is there's something that's blocking them. Because if we were just generally getting happy with our lives, then that would actually open some channels from the vortex and allow those things that already exist vibrationally to be perceived in a more physical way. So you would get this thing you wanted. But it requires you to be what Abraham called a cooperative component, but which we can refer to as just on the same vibrational level as the vortex. So if the vortex is on the vibrational level of the dot, you need to be on the vibrational level of the dot as well to perceive the manifestation. Am I talking at a level that makes sense to you there, Amla?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. And hopefully I'm not confusing everybody else here. So the aim of the game then is not actually to do anything other than achieve the vibrational harmony with the vortex, because
Hmm.
everything in the vortex that you want is actually on the same vibrational level. So if you imagine that all of these things are connected on the same vibrational level. So what we have to do in our life is just get to that vibrational level. So even if you've got 100 different things you want to manifest, your single job, your only job, is to match the vibrational level of the vortex. And once you do that, all those things start flooding in.
Hmm.
So when you say then you are overwhelmed and you have scattered focus, that kind of doesn't matter, because the focus that you're scattered about, is it because you're trying to manifest those things, or is it because you've just got a lot of things going on in your life? What causes that scattering?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as you're drawing this, like two things are coming to me. One is that there's not as much clarity about what I want. Like when there were the big things, it was like really easy to say, I want this, and there's a lot of very specific clarity about it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that there are, I'm talking about the things I want, but the other side of it, which is that if a recurring theme kind of keeps popping up in my life and it doesn't feel good, and it's like, well, I should clean that up. It's kind of that's where there's a bit of the scatter. It's like it feels like there's numerous things that need to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And like for example, once in a while I'll say, well, I'll just spend 30 days on X topic because it's come up so many times. I just want to focus on X topic. And I'll use my sort of like clearing methods or manifestational methods. But inevitably what seems to happen is within 5 or 7 days, something else will happen that needs to sort of more emergently be dealt with. And so I've never really had a period where I can just really focus on the one thing. And then I find that I'm like, oh, that came up last month and I'm still trying to clean it up. And that came up, so it's kind of like that.
Yeah. So a couple of points then I'd like to point out to you. The first thing is you don't need clarity. You don't need any clarity whatsoever, because the clarity is defined in the moment of the launching of the desire, and the
Okay.
clarity is absolute. Right? This is absolute clarity. So let me just write that up there because I like to write things. So absolute clarity. This thing, even though all you thought down here for this bad thing was yuck, I don't like that,
Mm,
in
mm.
the vortex is absolute clarity in enormous detail. And that clarity is amended every time you have another thing that happened that you don't like. These things that we don't like, we tend to call them desires. So, that's a euphemism for something I don't like. I've got a new desire. I don't like it. So these things are called desires, and these desires are in absolute clarity. So that's the first point I want to make, because you mentioned that you didn't really have clarity anymore. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. You just need to live your
Okay.
life. Clarity is specified in the vortex. The
Mm.
second thing is about the cleaning up. Now let's investigate this cleaning up thing. At the moment, how do you choose what subject to clean up?
Um, Usually what I'll do is if something happens that jars me, where I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling really bad, I'll sit down and do some EFT or I'll do some grid work, something like that, right as soon as I can after that event has taken place. Otherwise, what I'll do is like when I wake up in the morning, I do one sort of cleanup technique and then my meditation. And when I wake up, I think, what's the first thing that's coming to my mind that isn't feeling good? And I pick that as the thing to work on.
Right. So you wake up in the morning. So let me just clarify all of this, because it just helps to get this out on paper sometimes, or vibrational
Sure.
paper, computer paper. You wake up, you you think to yourself, what bad thing is on my mind? Is that what you're thinking?
No, I'm
What's bad?
thinking, why do I not feel great right now? Like
Ah,
if I wake
okay.
up and I don't feel great,
Yeah.
then I try to key in on it. What is it that's not feeling great? Like what is the thing that's probably on my mind? And I try to like clean that up.
So
If I
this,
wake up feeling great, then I don't go after anything. What I'll do in that setting actually is I'll do like a virtual workshop or something like that. I'll try to carry on the good feeling. But if I wake up and something's a little off, I try to just clean that up.
right. So when you wake up unhappy, why don't I feel great? You go off and do EFT, something like that. When you wake
Hmm.
up happy, it's a virtual workshop, and you do things like, I guess, what positive aspects, appreciation, that kind of thing. Uh,
Right, or I'll do like a creative visualization with just sort of enhancing more of what's feeling good and more of the life that I want.
okay, yeah, okay, creative visualization. So, how do you feel at the end of all that via a virtual workshop stuff? Are you feeling good?
Really good,
Really
really
good.
good.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Really good. So that deserves a big happy smile there.
Yeah, I kind of judge it by like, am I smiling while I'm doing it and when I'm done? And if I have a huge smile on my face, which I almost always do when I take that pathway, then I'm like, that was awesome.
Great. And then how long does that feeling good last? Does it last most of the day, or not?
Uh, I would say it rarely goes past the afternoon.
Right. And why would you say that? What happens in the afternoon?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's always, but it just feels like there's a sense that I can't keep up the momentum. It's not necessarily that there is an external thing that happens. And I think that's a little bit of the frustration also is like, it seems like some sort of background thought has come up. There's negative feeling, negative emotion, and I can't quite pinpoint what is it, but I can tell my vibration has gone down and I can tell I'm not feeling good.
Aha. Aha. So something has triggered. You see, you mentioned the word momentum,
Hmm.
as though once you feel good, you have to kind of keep that momentum going to feel good. Otherwise, you're going to sink back down into this dark mass of misery. That's actually not a very helpful analogy because it kind of implies you have to work at feeling good.
Mm,
So,
mm,
so
mm,
Abraham had this analogy of the cork that is being held underwater, and when
sure.
you let go of the cork, it floats to the top
Mm,
naturally.
mm-hmm,
So firstly, I would suggest that analogy you're using, that sort of mental model, might need to be revised a little bit. You do not
sure.
need to work at feeling good. But
Okay.
what you might need to work at is what is activating you to make you not feel good. In other
Mm-hmm,
words, when you have this cork floating on the water, what weight are you attaching to that cork to
mm-hmm,
drag it
mm-hmm.
back down again? Now, you said something pops up, and I don't know the exact words you used, but it's like kind of a background feeling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Have you any idea what that background feeling relates to?
I think, I'm kind of thinking this out loud, but I think probably the main thing is that I, before I got into doing this kind of manifestational work, I lived a life that was incredibly action oriented and very successful in that life. And I think there's this kind of background thing of like, if I haven't done some action oriented things throughout the day, like if I don't have some boxes to tick or something like that, I think there's some sort of self-worth thing that starts to go in the background of, oh, you didn't get anything done, or whatever, and I don't think I'm quite tuning into that, but I just think I start to feel like not good.
So you're kind of feeling that unless you've done something to justify your existence that day,
Yeah, yeah.
then you don't deserve to exist that day. That's
And
what
you
you're trying
can
to
see why someone would feel bad.
say. Yeah, I can see that belief system would be upsetting. Wouldn't be good for days off. Um, so, so
I
what?
guess let me just add one
Yeah,
thing to that. I think that in addition to that, there are lists and lists and lists of things that I want to do because I like it when those things are done and I even like the doing of them, right? And so there's just a kind of getting back to the earlier part, it's not just that like I want them done so that I feel like I'm a worthy person, but it's more like I'd like to have them done because that's just part of the life that I want, you know?
yeah. You want to feel engaged with your life.
Mm,
I,
yeah,
I totally relate to that. In fact, every human being on this planet would relate to that.
yeah,
Because we can just generally feel good and get stuff manifesting in our lives, but unless we feel we played a part, we're just like an observer looking at the countryside through a car windscreen instead of actually being
yeah,
out there with your smelling the air and the sun. So you want to be so here's what pops into my mind about action-oriented stuff, and it's a phrase you will have heard many times, and I'm going to annoy you by telling you yet again this phrase that
mm,
I know you
hmm,
probably heard of.
hmm,
You heard of this, inspired action?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I am very action-oriented like yourself, but I play a game. I play a game with myself, and that game is how long can I stay feeling good and not do
Mm,
anything? So what I do. Now, first of all, can I just ask one question before I launch into a speech here?
sure.
Do you meditate at all?
Yes.
Okay. Do you do that in the mornings?
I do it in the morning as well as at bedtime.
Right. Okay. So you're quite well in tuned with your emotional sensitivity then.
I am and I'm not. I mean, I feel like what I just said to you on certain things, I absolutely am, but sometimes things pop up and I'm like, "Oh, why am I feeling bad?" So some things are very the belief systems have found ways to kind of like keep themselves working basically, and sometimes all I can say is I don't feel good, but I can't necessarily say what it is that's making me feel bad.
The thought, um, when you say you don't know what it is that's making you feel bad, are you able, or have you ever just stopped at that moment and just thought about what it was you were just thinking about?
Yes.
And
And sometimes that will nail it, but like for example, like when you asked me, it was in speaking with you, it became more apparent. Why is this happening in the afternoon, for example? And I kind of had to think, oh, it must be because I'm thinking I didn't get enough stuff done or something. Um, so if it's like that, I wouldn't necessarily pick up on a thought, you know.
With your action orientation, do you have any kind of methodology that you use in order to corral all the things you want to do, like a time
Um,
management kind of thing, or
yeah,
what,
I
what?
have I have to-do lists, and what I do generally is I have my to-do list, and I kind of follow Bashar's methodology of like looking through the list and being like, which one brings me the most excitement? Which one is the inspired action right now?
Yeah.
Um, so I try to follow that as best I can within the guideline of like, okay, here's the 20 things. Like one of these is going to be what I'm going to do, you know.
And then why do you feel bad if you're choosing the best feeling thing each time?
Sometimes I don't choose the best feeling thing. Sometimes I get overwhelmed and
Ah,
I end up doing nothing. Or worse yet, sometimes I'll pick one and somewhere in there I start to, I suppose, lose the good feeling of doing it. And when I should probably switch tasks, I get back into like, well, I should finish this. It's still that sort of action-oriented mentality. I should finish this. And then, let's say I stick with it for a couple of hours. At the end of that couple hours, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have finished this. I'm not feeling good at all. Like, just like I kind of seem to have a hard time with that task switching kind of thing and really prioritizing, like, am I feeling good still? Is this really the right task still? And it seems to require some sort of checking in.
when you say you have to-do lists, then do you just randomly dump stuff down on to-do lists that you may want to do at some point?
When you say randomly, how do you mean?
I mean, in the sense that I would love to do these 20 things at some point over the next few days. I'll just keep it on one big to-do list and do it at some point if I feel like it. And then you might just add more and more to that list as time goes on. Is that how
Yeah,
you
yeah.
operate?
I mean, it's sort of short term. There's sort of a short term category and a longer term category within the to-do list. Like, and my goal has been like, I'm gonna do some of the big things each day, and then I'm kind of gonna go along and do the little things, which are not, don't require the same energetic commitment. But some of the bigger things, maybe I'm not as eager to do, but they still need to get done within the context of the life I'm living.
Yeah. And how clear is your mind when you are not doing these things? Are you thinking about the things you have to do?
Yeah, I think I might be.
Yeah. All right. Have you heard of a time management methodology called getting things done?
Yeah, I have.
David Allen. Have you ever tried that?
No.
The, so I'm going to start. I'm going to start promoting a product here, but I just think it's so well worth you looking at that.
Okay.
It, this thing is called GTD by David Allen, and it's getting things done, and it's a time management philosophy. Um, it's at www.gettingthingsdone.com. It's a
Mm-hmm.
management methodology, but that's a lie. It isn't really.
Mm.
It's a way of David Allen pushing high level spiritual concepts at people and masquerading it as a time management methodology. Because what this system is about clearing your mind of thought.
Mm.
That is what
Mm.
it's about. It's about existing in the mundane world and being okay with everything you have to do and being at zero neutral point within yourself so that then you can choose according to an inner guidance instead of an external pulling on you guidance. It's a way of freeing up your mind of overwhelm.
That sounds really nice. I mean, part of the reason I never was drawn to those techniques is because they did feel like full on action oriented without any of the spiritual aspect. And so when you're saying that's good to know.
Yeah, it's a little known fact that David Allen actually is very involved with spiritual subjects,
Mm,
but because he appeals to the corporate mentality, the
mm,
corporate world, he pushes his ideas as a very methodical corporate thing. But if you start to look more deeply into it, it is a very spiritual thing that he's getting
mm,
involved with. To me, it's basically interfacing with your higher self, your inner being, in a multidimensional way that then allows the energies of that higher self to flow through you and flow freely through you, not be blocked by resistance about doing this or that. So my number one recommendation to you would be go take a look at that and don't get put off by the corporate kind of feel
okay.
to it all. There's a lot of depth there. And especially when you get beyond the idea of the next action and you get into um, the several levels above the next action, which involve projects and goals and visions, all that integrates very nicely, the Horizons of Focus model. I would suggest, Alma, taking a look at that. Um, and I think that might be your next step there, to just sort of take a, just take a look at it and just see how you go with it.
Okay.
That might well clear up a lot of the overwhelm, which might then allow a lot of the Vortex stuff to flow in. And I know your name is Amla, by the way. I've called you Alma for some reason. Um, so would you be okay with doing that maybe as a next step and then seeing how that goes?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
would love to
Uh,
do that.
One warning about this, even though it appears to be just a time management system, it usually takes several years to get a grip on it because
Ugh,
it has such depth to it. You will get relief
wow.
straight away, but
Yeah.
don't be upset if it takes you 2 or 3 years to get good at it. But I
And
promise
do you
you,
think,
every step of the
sorry to
way will be
interrupt
worth
you.
it.
Okay. Do you think it's not having looked at it, I'm just asking, do you think it's something where you have to really follow every single rule, or is it like if you get a general idea, just kind of go with that?
Yeah, it's the second. You can
Okay.
apply it in as much detail as you want. Many people don't apply it beyond just having an inbox, which is a good idea.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but you can apply it almost to incredibly spiritual depths if you really want to. And the
Okay.
feeling of relief after doing a weekly review, I tell you, is astonishing. It's just like somebody's come up to you and said, "Give me all your problems, and I'll just throw them out of the window." That's how it feels after you do a weekly review properly.
That sounds great. That sounds like when you clean your house of clutter, but except you're carrying all the clutter inside you. So that sounds really great.
Exactly. You're decluttering your mind. And when you declutter your
Yeah.
mind, you open up the communication system from the vortex. And
Nice.
you start to find stuff starts to get done by itself, even, which is a variation of Abraham's placemat process anyway.
Right, right, right. Awesome, awesome.
So Amla, was that? Are you okay with that? Do you feel you were answered there in some way?
I'm 100% okay with that. I have like a million questions for you, but I'm gonna step back now because I'm sure so do many other people.
Thank you, thank you. Yes,
But yeah, I really, really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all your answers on IQ and the fact that you're doing this. And at some point, I might get in touch with you to work with you. I think that would be an amazing experience. So just thank you again.
no problem at all. Thank you for your question, and uh, uh, and I shall find another willing victim then. Thank you, Amla. So who else? Has anyone else got a? In fact, let me ask generally. Has anyone got a question still, or have you all fallen asleep now? If you've got a question, please type the number 3 into whatever box you can see on your screen, just so I know how many people want to ask. So I think as and anyone else got a question? Any more number 3s? Well, okay. So it looks like everyone has left the webinar except for Nicholas. Are you ready to ask your question live, my friend? If you are, I shall unmute you, and you
Yes.
can. Hey,
Hey, Stingray.
hello there. Hello there.
Cool. Good to hear from you. And yeah, I've enjoyed the webinar so far, and it was a good discussion to hear with yourself and is it Amla or cool.
Yeah. So I ought to explain to people who might be listening in that I have spoken to Nicholas before, which is why he didn't even bother to say hello to me. So hello, Nicholas.
Yeah, hi, Stingray.
So what can I do for you today, Nicholas?
Okay, just just a short, quick one. So the question is, I'm having issues with the grid work.
Yeah.
And I've posted on the manifesting lab, and you've answered it. It's been helpful. The grid work I'm struggling with because I'm finding it an analytical thing still. So if I want to generate an emotion of, say, prosperity,
Yeah.
I end up getting into this word game more than an emotional game. And I know the advice you gave was to sort of slow down and really savor the words a little more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just wondering if you could comment on that a little bit more. Yeah, just with the grid work.
Now, when you say you're getting analytical, is that a case of, say if you're trying to generate the emotion of ease, you are just effectively becoming a human dictionary and spouting out words? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly that. And and I've gotten pretty good at that actually with different emotions. And it's tough for me to sometimes decipher if I'm actually in the emotion or not, because it's like I've spent a few minutes, wow, I've just come up with all these words and I feel a little bit of pride coming up with the words, but I'm not actually, I'm not really sincerely in that emotional state of being. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So would you like to run through an example of what you mean, just so everyone's on the same page? Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Okay. So let me pull up my trusted word processor device. And for those who don't know what we're talking about here, we're talking about Abraham grid work. And that is a way of generating emotions that you want to feel on purpose. So if, for example, Nicholas wanted to feel the emotion of ease on purpose, he would start off thinking about some words that represent ease to him. So he might say comfort, soft, peace. And the idea is, and you don't type them as fast as I do, the idea is that as you go on and on, focusing upon these words, you eventually feel the feeling of ease. And what Nicholas is saying is that as he comes out with these words, he's getting very analytical about it. So I presume instead of feeling soft, he's just maybe thinking of things that are soft. I'm guessing something like that. Is that right?
Yes, spot on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me an example then. What's your favorite emotion that you like to generate with grid work?
I don't have one. Okay, let's go like well-being.
Well-being. Okay. So well-being. And what I like to do is, it's very hard to look at a word like, or a combination of words like well-being and instantly conjure up well-being. I find the human mind responds very well to questions. So I always, in the back of my mind, or even on the screen in front of me, I put a question that triggers me. So I usually have something like, what does well-being feel like, for example? So now I know you already know about this, but I'm just saying it for the people who are watching in webinar land. So So I like to have a question that triggers the emotion. Now, I presume you're already doing this. You have a question to fire off an emotion.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, go ahead and just try and generate a bit of well-being if you can, without ignoring the fact there's 75 million people watching and me breathing down your neck. Just calm down and take it easy.
Okay, so clarity. Calmness. Easiness. Smooth. Yeah, at that point, I feel empty about, well, not, but like complete, not complete with it. But this is the point where I start to get into the dictionary mode with it.
No.
I'm struggling for anything to, like, a word to sincerely come up that that can, like, replicate that emotion anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So at this point, would it be suitable to leave it there?
Yes.
And do a different one? Okay.
Yes, it would. And in fact, I thought you did pretty well there. By the time you got to easiness, I was feeling pretty good, actually. So did you feel well-being by the time you typed smooth, or by the time I typed smooth?
Look, I think so. Yeah. And I say that because it's, I'm on a webinar and there's this pressure in the back of my mind, but I think, I think I got there more or less. What my issue is, for different emotions, I'll go a couple words and I'll put the words down, and whether they fire or not for me, and then I'll feel like I'll sort of beat myself up because I can't get into that emotion anymore, or the words aren't sort of flowing properly for that one, or they're just hollow words. And so that's sort of my general issue with it. But for this one, I got there.
Yeah, if that's what you're doing, then I would say that's good. I would give you 10 out of 10. Where you seem to be hurting yourself is that you think you should be feeling it more strongly.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So let me draw a little diagram, because I haven't drawn a diagram for a few minutes and people are missing them. So let me draw a little diagram here. What happens then? And I may have even told you this before, because I know you and me have spoken before. But for the sake of people listening and for the sake of people who love diagrams, I'm going to draw this. And let's say that this is a graph with two axes, and let's say this is strength of emotion at the top here, and this is days on this axis here. And let's say on day one, you generate a feeling of well-being, and you generate it and you leave it. So that's at the end of day one, you've left it there. And let's say that this is day two, and that this is day three. So I can count up to three. So what happens, you see, after day one, and you leave it in a pure place, is that this magic little fairy pixie comes along called the law of attraction. And what the law of attraction does is it boosts up what you've done, because law of attraction is a momentum adder. It is a momentum multiplier, momentum of thought, that is. So let's say it's a momentum multiplier. So whatever you leave in a pure place, law of attraction will multiply the momentum on it, so that by day two, you come along, you do well-being again, and you think, I kind of did it, but I didn't do it a lot. Doesn't matter. You actually started in a better place. And the law of attraction pixie works through the night, and it boosts it up so that the next morning you are actually building this emotion every day. You are getting higher and higher with the strength of that emotion, but it may well be below your threshold. So let's say you have, this has a threshold of awareness. You might not realize that it is building, that this emotion is building. But as you go on, and I shall put day 4, we are getting into big day numbers here. On day 4, it might actually, law of attraction may have caused that emotion to break through the threshold of awareness, which means now you suddenly feel that emotion strongly. And you're thinking, wow, I can feel well-being really strongly. And yet for days I couldn't feel anything. Because what was happening was you were leaving it in a pure place every time, which means law of attraction could work on it. And then you did it a bit more and left it in a pure place. Law of attraction worked on it, did a bit more. Law of attraction worked on it until eventually it broke through the threshold. Now you can feel that emotion easily. Have you ever tried that? Just leaving it in a place that you felt was not even strong and just trusting that it would build. Have you tried that?
I haven't tried that, no, because as you said, my issue is I'll attempt to generate a couple of emotions, and yeah, because the volume or the strength of it isn't so powerful, or it's not like really intense, I think to myself that I've failed with the emotion. And so, yeah, then I'm just like, oh, that one doesn't work. I'm not going to carry that one on or whatever. But that to me makes sense. Yeah, that clears it up beautifully.
Okay, so trust yourself. I would say trust yourself. The mere fact that you can even get out 2 or 3 words means you must have done something. You know, just to come out with up to there at least. Just to come out with those 3 words, which I felt were very good, especially easiness, means you must have built something pure. Now, if you leave it purely, it will build, and the next day will be easier, and the next day will be easier. Just trust that process. Honestly, it will work. I've experienced this myself, and I know I've spoken to other people who've experienced this, days and days and days of trying the same emotion, and then suddenly something clicks, and it's like, wow, what on earth has changed? And all that has changed is that breaking through that threshold of awareness now. Instead of this work happening late at night, the law of attraction pixie working on your stuff, it is now doing it in the daylight, and you can feel the emotion of it. So trust yourself, Nicholas, and would you be willing to give that a try for several days in a row, even though you don't think it's doing anything? Just see what happens?
No, that's great. I'm definitely down for that. That makes it a lot easier for me to have some faith in doing over a period of time. That's great. No, yeah. Thanks for your help. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So let me see if there's what else? Who've we got here? Has anyone else got a live question before I switch to some text ones? Type in number 4 if you want to come on live and have a chat. Absolutely nobody. Excellent. So let me see. There is a question typed into the box here, and just give me a moment, please, to read it. Right. So, Alex, is your question a question you want to ask live, or is it one you're going to type in there? Okay, yeah, go ahead and type it. In the meantime, somebody's who's got no name whatsoever has said, how do you use law of attraction to improve yourself? Well, that is a general question indeed. Have you got several days when we can talk about this? How do you use it to improve yourself? I'm going to take improve yourself as in feel happier, because generally speaking, people want to improve themselves to be happy. In fact, generally speaking, we want to do everything to be happy. So I'm going to take that question as, how do you use law of attraction to get happier? And my number one recommendation, which I know anyone who's been following me for a while will be sick of me here saying this, is practice it. Practice it. It takes about 30 days to set up a habit. It's just what human beings seem to need. They need that period of time. So to set up a habit takes 30 days. Guess what? If you practice feeling good for 30 days in a row, you have a habit of feeling good. And that is the law of attraction in action again, in a similar way to the way I was talking to Nicholas about, the law of attraction multiplying the efforts you've done. So if you just find a way to feel good every day for at least a few minutes, and just do that consistently, 30 days in a row, you will find it's a lot easier to be happy. So to answer the question, how do you use law of attraction to improve yourself? That would be my number one recommendation. Just feel good. Let law of attraction do the work behind the scenes in the same way that I spoke to Nicholas about the law of attraction pixie working behind the scenes. And then you will feel happier and happier and happier. And that will attract happy circumstances into your life because your thoughts create your reality. So that question, I'm going to assume was answered. Now the question that was that Alex was asking is here. And I'm just going to read it. Just give me a moment, please, there. Just talk amongst yourselves. Right, so the question is, and I'm paraphrasing this, I've manifested a desire in one day, and it has, and I've manifested one in 2 years. So the question is, what determines how long does it take to manifest something? Is there any rule? There is a kind of rule. Let me draw another diagram. I haven't drawn one for at least a few minutes, and I know you're missing them. So let me draw another one. Here is quite an interesting concept, and by interesting, I mean so life-changing that you should drop everything you're doing right now and listen to this, because this is the basis of something that I call the ultimate manifesting framework, and I truly mean that. There is nothing that will ever be more ultimate than this for manifesting. And it's far, far more complex than I'm about to show you, but I'm going to show you this bit at least, so you get some idea of what this framework is about. And if I'm able to write anymore, I shall write the word presence in this box here. So what we have here is a desire. This is a desire, means something I'm probably unhappy about and I want to change, so I have a desire for it. The desire always has two aspects to it. It has an absence aspect and it has a presence aspect. So if you imagine that absence and presence are the two sides of the desire, and you imagine that the desire is kind of balancing on a wedge. If absence sort of takes a dip, your feeling of absence about the desire takes a dip in comparison to your feeling of presence about the desire. Guess what? The desire manifests. That's what we call manifesting. If, on the other hand, the feeling of absence about the desire is stronger than the feeling of presence about the desire, you could say that this desire kind of tips on this thing downwards, and what we get is more absence. We get well, we get nothing, and we get people complaining at people like me saying this law of attraction stuff is nonsense. But really, this is what it's all about. It comes down to, how do you feel about your desire? Are you feeling it's present, or are you feeling it's absent? And really, that's what manifesting comes down to. It is as simple as that. If you can make the presence of what you want more than the absence of what you want, you will get it. So the first thing that people hear, first thing that pops into people's minds when they hear something like that is, great, I've got it. I know how to manifest everything in my life. I'm going to focus like crazy on the presence of the thing. So let's assume that that is the presence of the thing, and they are going to boost up this presence of the thing into a very big presence of thing. The small issue with that is most people's vibrations about desires are not pure. So they have this little niggly little thing down there called resistance. So let's call this resistance. And this resistance can consist of you thinking about the lack of what you want, or it can consist of other things. But when you boost up something without taking into account the resistance, guess what? The resistance proportionally boosts up as well. So while this resistance is there, you're basically on this side of the scale. So the thing you want doesn't come. So I'm kind of paraphrasing quite a bit there, because I'm running off a question that has been typed and is obviously is just a one-line question. So how long does it take to determine how long something takes to manifest? The answer is, as long as it takes you to feel the presence, to feel your presence of the thing more than the absence of the thing. And if that takes 2 days, it takes 2 days. If it takes 2 years, it will take 2 years. So long answer to a pretty short question. Now, there's a couple of other questions written in the chat box there, so let me quickly knock those off. And I say quickly, it'll probably take another 15 minutes like this one. So here's the question from Kelsey. Have you ever worried about things? I'm struggling with trying to stop worrying about the future constantly. Aha. So maybe I should bring that diagram back again. Yes, let me do this. And this is why I call it the ultimate manifesting framework, or at least it's the tip of the iceberg of the ultimate manifesting framework, or even the flea on the back of the dog of the iceberg of the ultimate manifesting framework. The reason you're worried about things, let me suggest to you, and I can only suggest because I can't talk to you, is, are you thinking about the absence of something? Because when you think about the presence of something you want, and you think about it purely, you feel good. When you think about the absence of something you want, and you think about that absence purely, you feel bad. So if you are feeling bad, that indicates to me, and you are thinking about the absence of something instead of the presence of it. So let me give you a more concrete example, because this can get a bit too abstract sometimes. Let's say that I want a new red car. I always give analogies about new red cars for some reason. So let's say you want a new red car, and you see the new red car, and you feel bad that you don't have it. That means you're focused on the absence of it. And if you're focused on the absence of it, the presence of it does not exist in your reality, and you're just going to get more and more depressed about the lack of that new red car. And in your question, you were talking about worry. If you keep seeing the lack of the thing you want, don't you think that might cause you to worry, because it's causing you to lose faith in the fact that this thing will ever come? Now, obviously, it's a bit hard for me to talk about this in too much detail without getting a bit of feedback, but what I shall suggest is that you're feeling worry about some absence of something, if there is any way for you to neutralize the absence using some clearing method, maybe EFT, maybe something like focus wheels, focus blocks, whatever you feel like clearing up stuff with. If you do that, that will help to push this absence down relative to the presence, and will start to bring the presence up, which will then start to produce these things called vibrational matches, which are little clues that what you want is coming. So what I would do with the worry is simply start to neutralize it a little bit using some clearing method. Now, the other part of your question was, do I ever worry? No, actually, no. Long time ago, yes, not now. I've built up so much faith in this stuff that all I do is I think, oh yeah, all I'm doing with worry is giving myself more absence. So why would I do that? That's a silly thing to do. If the only way I'm going to get my stuff is to give more presence to it. So I either don't think about the thing at all, which neutralizes the absence, or I'll think about the thing in a pure way, and that will bring the more presence to it. A long answer again to a very short question, but I hope it was useful to at least people watching. Now let me see, another question from NS. Is everything in the Vortex available when I'm happy? Or is it that if I'm feeling good, some things from my Vortex are available to me, but some things are still out of reach in a way because I'm not happy enough? So let me clear the screen and let us draw the Vortex. And this is the official copyrighted Stingray symbol for the Vortex, which is a scribble of the word Vortex and just a scribble of some circular thing. And the question is everything available when I feel happy? So NS, I don't know if you're male or female, but let's assume that's you. If you are feeling happy, you are part of the Vortex. Your vibrational, so let's say your vibration is represented by that square. When you're feeling happy, you are in resonance with that. In the same way that you have tuning forks, which if you are in any way musical, you'll have come across before. If you have two tuning forks near each other, not necessarily even touching, at the same, and they resonate at the same frequency, then if you just tap one tuning fork, the other one starts resonating automatically, even though there is no physical link between the tuning forks. In a similar way, when you are feeling good, you are now resonating with everything in the Vortex that feels good. So those resonations can sometimes come back to you as inspirations or impulses, ideas. That's kind of how the Vortex starts to speak to you initially. It starts to speak to you with these very gentle little impulses, ideas, inspirations. If you follow through on that into this physical reality, and this is where the idea of inspired action comes from, if you follow through on that and take some inspired action, which is not always necessary, I have to say, but if you have a belief system that action is required, then take some inspired action, and that will get you well on the road to manifesting that thing. But your question, NS, was a little more detailed than that. You said, if I'm feeling good, some things from my Vortex are available to me, but some things are still out of reach. Yes, some things are still out of reach, and that's because these belief systems. So let's say you had a belief system that you must take inspired action in order for something to manifest, and you deliberately did not take inspired action because you listened to somebody like me that said that inspired action isn't always necessary, and in fact often isn't necessary. But your belief system is such that you don't believe that. Then, despite the fact that you are resonating with the stuff in the Vortex, you're getting these impulses, inspirations, ideas, that will still not allow it to manifest, because this thing that we shall arbitrarily call resistance, but in this particular example is a limiting belief that says inspired action is necessary. Until that thing is resolved, it's quite difficult for that thing to manifest. It doesn't mean it won't, because the universe is on your side and it will try to sneakily bring things to you when you are resisting the least. which is why you get this effect that when you want something for a long time and then you finally give up on it, it finally comes. And that's because when you give up on it, guess what else you've given up on? You've given up on the resistance. And so that thing finally comes and you think, the universe is playing games with me. But it isn't really. It's just that you had a little bit of resistance there. Hopefully that gives you a few insights. There's a few more questions appearing. Has anyone got one that they want to ask live? If you have, please type the number 5 into the chat box and just come up, just so people have a break from me for a few minutes. Is anyone willing to come up here? You're all cowards, okay? You're all cowards. I officially proclaim you cowards, but I love you really. So I'm going to take then the next question that's been typed in here. And this is a long, long question, so please give me a moment here. So I'm going to read out the whole question, and I'm going to try and understand it as I read it. Otherwise, it's quite long, and it's going to take a long time for me to read it. So the question is, hi Stingray, if you have time, I'd like your insight. I used to be a big-time happy face sticker person, in Abraham's terms. Now I'm going through a long phase of realizing that I actually habitually vibrate in the bummer zone. Wow. Part of me feels low about this. Sometimes I feel despair because I don't actually know how to feel good for real. I just know how to believably fake being optimistic. But then at other times, it feels quite relieving to just admit that I feel crummy or don't know how to feel better for real. Part of me wants to just let this unfold and trust that being real about how I feel will lead to improvement. Another part of me worries that I'll run out of time and already have run out of time for various goals. Thoughts about that? It feels like my energy is snarled up and slowly unfurling. Slow. Right, so you're basically asking, how honest should you be about your emotions? And I'm just rereading part of this question here. Part of me wants to just let this unfold and trust that being real about how I feel will lead to improvement. Yes. Be real. And in fact, I haven't used the color red for a while. So let me just write that. Be real. Be real with yourself. If you cannot be real with anyone else, be real with yourself. If you cannot be real with yourself, you have no chance of changing your vibrational set points. And that is because, let's assume this is your vibration. Let's put your vibration in a box. And your vibration is in a box, and the box is in a bad feeling place. And what you want to do is drag that vibration up to somewhere that is in a good feeling place. The only way you're going to drag that vibration up to a good feeling place without ignoring it, so I'm talking in terms of deliberately engaging with it, the only way you can do that is to attach something to it and physically drag it up. Now, to attach something to it, you have to be real. You have to be real, because if you're not real, what happens is the thing you try to attach might be up here. So the thing you're trying to attach is up here in a happy thing, but that's not linked to the thing that you're trying to change. So you pull up this, let's say this is a rope, and you pull this up, it's not attached to anything because the thing it needs to attach to is down here in the misery. So you have to be real in order to attach something to it. And once you've attached something to it, you can use whatever method works for you. So people like EFT, I like it because it's quick and easy. Focus wheels again, focus blocks, focus wheels, great methods for clearing stuff up. In other words, moving your vibration up. There's the Abraham emotional grid, which I've called Abraham Grid on Inward Quest. There's so many methods that work for shifting that vibration, but unless you attach to it, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, if you're not being real with yourself about it, there is kind of a suggestion that I might have, and that is, why don't you record yourself talking about the thing, and talk as though, well, in fact, you don't even need to record it. You could just talk about the thing as though you're complaining to a friend, and just complain how bad your life is. And honestly, it sounds like you'll be going backwards with the law of attraction with this, because it's kind of forcing you to feel bad. But remember, we're doing this for a deliberate reason, to attach to the bad feeling vibration. So sit down and just moan, complain how bad things are, and do it with my full blessing, and complain that Stingray guy made you do it as well. So, oh, I hate my life. I hate this. I hate that. Oh, that's so awful. Feel free to do that, because while it is not helping you from a vibrational point of view, it is causing you to attach to the thing that is upsetting. Then don't leave your set point there. Use one of these techniques or any other preferred technique and shift it, and you will be able to shift it because you've engaged with it. Again, a very long answer to a question that at least was a little bit long. That was asked by Corduroy Power. Was that in any way at all useful to you, or are you now too busy complaining to be able to answer me? I shall wait for a few moments for a response. In the meantime, is anyone else? That was, oh, good, thank you. Yes, you're welcome, Corduroy Power. And yes, you need to start complaining right now. So don't put it off any longer. Right, let me just do a quick time check here. We've been going now for about an hour and 20 minutes, and you guys are still here. Oh my goodness, can I not get rid of you? Has anyone else got a question? Because if you haven't, I'm starting to feel a bit tired here, so I might have to wrap this thing up. But I'll give it one last question if anyone else has one. If you do, please enter any kind of character, any number you like, into the chat box, just so I know I've missed your question if you've already asked it. And if you haven't already asked it, now's your chance. So I shall count down from 5 to 1. If no one enters a number into the chat box, I shall assume this is the end of the webinar. So 5, 4. Oh, somebody has beat me to it. So, so just when I thought I was going to get some sleep, because it's nighttime here, Dora the Explorer. Dora, are you willing to come up here and ask a question live? No microphone. Okay, no problem, Dora. You go ahead and do your exploring in the chat box there. So go ahead and ask that question. We'll all wait here impatiently, tapping our fingers on the table while you type up that question. In the meantime, while we're all sitting here complaining about how slow Dora is to type, in fact, Dora's written that question already. Okay. So let me see. The question is, do you recommend generating the same emotion each day by the grid work? Aha. This is a question that is such a short question with such a long answer. And my goodness, I do not even know where to begin with this. So I'm going to give you a very short answer to this, because it gets into the thing called the ultimate manifesting framework, which I spoke about a bit earlier, where that framework is about deliberately manifesting what you want. And that's kind of something that is going to get pushed very hard at the Manifesting Lad people if it hasn't already been pushed at them. What I would recommend at the stage of most people is just do emotions that make you feel good. Just choose an emotion you like and practice it. and that's as far as it goes. As long as you are feeling good every day and feeling a good emotion, your life is getting better. You're letting stuff to manifest into your reality. You don't need to get into the deliberate manifesting stuff if you don't want to. You can just lie back and just have stuff come when it comes. So yes, just generate the same emotion every day if you love that emotion. There are certain emotions I really love, and I generate them every single day pretty much. Emotions like carefree and ease and what's the other one I like? I like it so much I've forgotten it. That's how good I like it. I have become the emotion. Whatever it is, I generate it every morning, and I can't even remember what it is now. So that goes to show you how fried my brain is right now. So I hope that answered your question, Dora, and in fact you've said it. Thanks for the confirmation. Great. Good feels good. That is indeed correct. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to draw this webinar to a close. Thank you sincerely for attending. Thank you for putting up with listening to me for so long, because all you cowards wouldn't come up here and talk to me. But sincerely, thank you for coming. I hope you got something out of this. Maybe we should do this again sometime. If it was valuable to you, I'm very, very happy, because that was my aim with this. It was to provide some value to you. And if some of you have not got sick of listening to me yet, you are welcome, of course, to visit the old manifesting lab there. And I say old because it's about a week old. There's a $1 trial on that thing, so come and have a look around. And there's people like me there. And if you haven't got sick of listening to me, there's more of me chatting aimlessly about manifesting stuff. So that's all I've got to say for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It is a pleasure and an honor to have spoken to you. And my bed awakens, or awakens? My bed awaits. Thank you very much. Good night or good day, wherever you are, or even good morning. I am leaving you now. Thanks for attending. Bye-bye.